Oh, we're live here. Hi.
Oh, you were able to stream?
Who are we broadcasting to?
YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm glad I didn't have a booger going on there. So. Or I might. I don't know. I've had a mask on all day. I don't care. My story is an open book. It's all good.
All right, Renee, just let us know when we can start.
Okay.
Steve, pleasure to see you again. It's been 2 years.
It seems like it's been like 5. It's so weird. The world is so upside down right now. Thank you for having me back.
Well, we're so glad to have you back. And of course, I have to say you are the voice that fortified anime in the U.S. with you introducing so many generations because of you being Tom from
Toonami. Only Toonami on Adult Swim every Saturday night. Kids love it.
Exactly. You're Roger from Big O. You are from Samurai Champloo, Spike from Cowboy Bebop, and so much more. How was it to play so many iconic roles over the years?
Beats digging ditches. I've had some terrible jobs before, so to get to do this for a living is beyond any wildest expectations that I had. I didn't know it was even possible to do it for a living, so just the fact that I still get to do this after all these years it's amazing. I wake up in gratitude and go to sleep in gratitude every night. It's incredible, and even more so that it has affected people's lives positively. That was the biggest surprise of all. So we were working in dark rubber rooms without any idea of who would be consuming the final product, and 20-something years later we're still talking about Bebop. Who knew?
I figured you might have seen Netflix's Cowboy Bebop.
I've seen all but the final episode, so don't spoil it for me. Yeah.
As much so far, how do you feel about the show overall, as well as John Cho's performance?
I love the show, actually. I really love it. It's an homage to what came before, but it's also their own thing. And I love that it started out with just really sticking to the original storylines, with the music being mixed in different spots. It was fascinating to me. I love this cast. I think they're fantastic. I actually just signed the petition for the thing to continue for a second season. I'm really, really enjoying it, and I love John's take on it too. I contacted him in the very early stages of production, and he was just so into it, and it's really translating well. You can tell that he loves the show, that he loves the franchise, and he gave Spike his own take, and I respect that, and I love it. And I'm glad that I didn't have to work out to do those fight scenes. Leave it to him. I'm happy to do that. I'll come in for a little cameo sometime if they'd have me. But yeah.
That would be nice.
Steve, you are. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
How did you get started doing voice acting?
Voice acting was a happy accident for me. I was working as a mailroom clerk at a film studio many years ago, and a driver, and I happened to have the deepest voice in the mailroom, and they needed somebody to do a creature for a Japanimation project. And I had no interest in it, no acting experience at all. I was a starving musician trying to play in an R&B band in the 80s, which was challenging at that time because it was all hair bands and heavy metal. So I just did it for a favor for a friend on a weekend because he offered me free pizza, and came in and saw a creature on the screen, and they asked me what it would be like if the creature ripped the arm off of another creature and beat him with it. And I went, oh, I can do that. And I just went up to the microphone and went, and they said, all right, you're hired. And then I kind of pooped myself a little bit, and then I asked if I still get the pizza, because that's really all I was there for. And then I had to learn how to say words, and the acting part was really the hard part. It took me many years to really get decent at that, where I felt I was doing a good job. I felt like I was faking it until then. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with anime. I fell in love with the whole industry of voice acting. Commercials, video games, original animated cartoons, all of it. It was just so much fun for me that I did that for very little money, and most of the time for free, because it was the only thing that made me happy while I was working a bunch of jobs that I hated. And I just stuck with it. And 30-something years later, I'm still doing it every day, and I still say a prayer of gratitude every time I wake up in the morning, every time I go to sleep at night, and every time I walk in front of a microphone. So, including right now. Yeah. Thank you.
Steve, you were put in the Guinness Book of Records in 2012
Yep.
for being the most prolific video game voice actor with 261 appearances. Have you beaten the record, and what upcoming games can we see you in?
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, that Guinness record was a quantity record. It wasn't a quality record, for the record. Apparently, I've maintained that record. They contact me every year or two, and they ask me just to verify that my IMDb is correct, which I never know. I have to go through it with my agent every time, as I don't pay attention. I'm not a gamer, and also when I'm recording the games, they're under a different name. Usually, it's always a code name, so I have no idea how they're released, and so it takes some doing to figure out if it's actually accurate. I understand that it's around 400 voices now, something like that, and that's probably inaccurate, because there are some games like the Star Wars games that I would do 26 episodes in 26 characters in a session, in a single session. So who knows? I don't even know. But apparently I still hold a world record, and it's cool. I have the plaque on my wall. It's awesome. And in terms of games that are coming up, I can't talk about anything that hasn't been announced, because there's a chip in my neck that will just explode my head into a colorful vapor. So.
So the ones that have been announced, can you tell everybody which ones they can expect to see you in?
I don't know what's been announced because I don't pay attention. If you give me some names, some titles, I can probably comment on it a little bit. But
Red Dead Redemption 3.
am I in that? I don't know.
You're in 2.
Oh, am I? God, I don't even remember. See, it was probably called something else back then. I didn't know.
The Code Project.
I heard great things about it, but
Right.
I honestly don't know. The one that people had been talking about in the last year was Valorant. I played Brimstone in that. That was really fun. But I don't know if that's continuing. Also, Guild Wars 2 seems to be continuing forever, as Ritlock Brimstone in that one. But I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I'd have to look. I'd have to look at my own IMDb and to tell you.
I just work.
I do. I just do the work.
One sec. He wants to had a mod question. Oh, you can ask your question. It's okay.
Pardon me, yes.
Hi.
As a fan, you read Wolverine comics, but you also acted in the iteration of it. How did you feel like infusing your fan self into the character as an actor?
Putting my fan self into a character?
The Wolverine.
Oh, Wolverine. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. How did I feel as a fan of Wolverine, being able to voice act as him? It was a dream come true. I grew up in a comic book store, or it was a comic book section of a bookstore. My grandfather owned a bookstore when I was a little kid. My very first job at 12 years old was sorting comics. And so I've always been a fan of Marvel, particularly. And getting to voice a character like Wolverine, such an iconic character, and picking it up after so many people had done such an amazing job with him before was terrifying, honestly. I started voicing Wolverine with X-Men Legends in the video game many years ago, and was super excited to be able to do it then. And then ultimately, a bunch of different projects later, getting to work on Wolverine and the X-Men, it was like the 12-year-old who was realizing that fantasy, of actually being able to portray the character that I had in my head for so many years reading the comics. And for some reason, the producers agreed that the voice I was hearing in my head was the one they were hearing in their head too. So I'm just grateful to have gotten to play him. I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice, bub. So, thank you for that. And I do own Wolverine claws, for the record too. I have them in the studio with me at all times. You never know.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. So as far as you mentioned your R&B skills, have you sung on any anime shows?
Have I used my R&B skills? No. No. No, I played guitar for an R&B band, and there's not much call for playing guitar on anime shows unless you're part of the band that's actually recording the music. But I think that the timing the sense of timing, because I was a rhythm guitarist, my sense of timing from that really helped me in anime, because a lot of what we do in that is very technical and time-based. We have to fit things in very specific blocks of time. So in that sense, it really helped me a lot, and I've probably used that in everything I've done in my career. But I'd love to get back into music at some point. My guitars mock me on the wall. But I've been working on the periphery. I'm working with Logic, doing voiceover work with him on his albums, and a few other projects too. It was really exciting for me. Stanley Clark, the amazing, legendary bass player, actually had me do a voiceover thing on one of his albums, on his last album. So I've been doing it as a voice actor, but not as a musician. So one of my goals is to get good enough where I could actually lend a little bit of musical stuff to some project. So, but that's in the future.
Just to clarify, with the voicing one of the intros or outros of the album?
For Logic, there's an album called The Incredible True Story, and there was actually a running storyline, a sci-fi storyline, where he created a character for me. And Kevin Randolph, his keyboard player, who's a master producer, also he's played with everybody in the world, he was my partner in that. And so we actually carried a storyline through Logic's entire album about this journey to a place called Paradise after humans had destroyed the earth. We were looking for a new place to populate. So he wrote a whole story about that, and so I was one of the major characters in that. And then we carried that on through his next album, Everybody. So there was a little cameo in there, and a few of his albums. I've been on, I think, 4 of his albums now, and 3 or 4 of his music videos. And it's really been fun. It's been a chance to kind of unite the hip-hop community with the anime community. And there are people that love both but wouldn't talk to each other because they were embarrassed about it. And Logic is one of those amazing people who loves to bring people together. And many years ago at New York Comic Con, we had a panel together to introduce The Incredible True Story. And you'd see like hardcore hip-hop fans and anime fans in costume come into the room and have conversations for the first time, and it was amazing. I love this, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Well, I love this, but I couldn't talk to anybody. It's amazing. So just to be part of something that unites different aspects of fandom is amazing to me. Yeah, thank you for that.
How does it feel like when you did Cowboy Bebop, you probably didn't expect it to have the kind of legacy 20 years later? It must be kind of crazy still being like recognized and
it's
for like, you know, that thing you did so long ago.
Yeah, it's really weird. We didn't expect anything of it. You know, back in those days, we weren't sure if anybody was going to see it because episodes of anime were only available on VHS, and it was like $80 for an episode or 3 episodes. And the fandom was really small, and it was also the subbers versus dubbers back then. It wasn't broadcast out to the millions until Cartoon Network and Adult Swim started broadcasting things. That changed everything for us. So all these years later, for a show like that to still be spoken of and spoken of fondly is incredible to have been part of something like that, especially because we didn't know what we were doing at the time. That was my first leading role. And Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who directed it, she is my partner in life, the love of my life. She played Julia on that show. And 20 years later, we're now a couple. And who knew that was going to happen either? But we talk about that all the time, that, you know, we're making something for us that we loved, and we had a little bit more time with something like Cowboy Bebop. They just left us alone and gave us enough money gave them enough money to do it right. And it holds up over the test of time. And a show like Bebop, too, it was really just our job not to screw it up, because it was so perfect when we got our voices around it. The music was amazing, the visuals were amazing, the storytelling was incredible. So it's really cool to be part of something like that 20 years later, and to be recognized for it too. I mean, we walk around in grocery stores and people come up to us and tell us how much it meant to them and got them through hard times in their life. It's crazy. Who knew? Voice actors were the anonymous people.
Yeah, back in the day you had to like get a DVD or something. Now streaming makes it so easy for people to keep discovering things.
Yeah. And whole new generations are watching now too. Grandparents are sharing it with their grandchildren. It's unbelievable. I'm old. Hi.
Oh, it's Malik.
So like everything gets remade and sorry.
Okay, Malik had a question.
Oh no.
What motivated you to start teaching?
What motivated me to start teaching?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I didn't want to teach. I found that conventions, especially at my signing tables, everything became a teaching moment. Or at my panels, people would ask me things about voice acting, and I couldn't help myself. I want to help people to have an easier time of it than most of us did coming up. So my team around me was bugging me relentlessly for years to start teaching on a bigger scale. I really, really didn't want to do it, and I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know how to deconstruct 30 years of work into something that I could impart in a curriculum style to people. So we just had to kind of start from scratch, and I really had to sit and think for about a year and a half of how I was going to do it. And it turned out to be okay. We were at Bloomvox Studios online. The classes are all taught via Zoom. And the first 30 classes were all that I was going to do. It was really just the curriculum-based classes on gaining self-confidence and vocal health and navigating the industry, because it is a predatory industry like anything else. Entertainment is rough. So I wanted to go through all those basics, teach about cold reading, all the stuff, all the essential tools that they would need to get started. And I was going to cut it off there, and I realized that I ran out of things to say because it's all based on my experience. So I started bringing in the best of the best. And Billy West is here at the convention. He was one of my guests a couple of months ago. And to be able to talk to my heroes like Billy and pick their brains has been an incredible experience. I've learned a lot too, and it's been something that hasn't been available to students of voiceover ever. So I think we filled a really important niche in the marketplace, and it's affordable. Also, that was the other thing that really bothered me, is that some of the voiceover classes that were available back in the day were thousands of dollars and commitment for weeks or months at a time. And some people weren't ready for that. So we were able to offer something. We do have like year-long subscriptions, but we also have just a single month entry-level thing. And even if they sign in for that, there's 200 hours, more than 200 hours of information in there that they can go in and just consume as much as they possibly can in that month if that's all they can afford. And then we did a free masterclass, and we've got a quarterly newsletter that's a multimedia thing where I do product recommendations and helpful videos and things from events like this that I can share with people from all over the world. It's really cool. It's been a fun journey, and it's a lot of work, and it's been very expensive to build the school, but it's working. And I have students coming at every convention all over the world now telling me how much it's helped them. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful that the students have trusted me to do this. So thank you for bringing that up. BloomvoxStudios.com. Yeah. Hi. Yes, I have to do that.
Of course. Okay, so earlier you had mentioned that there were roles that you kind of faked until you made it in.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any roles that you could mention now that you might want to go back and do again, or do over, or do better?
Well, I mentioned this in my last panel that I watched Bebop for the first time in its entirety a couple of years ago, 20 years later. And just watching that, it took me the first few episodes to just get into it enough to stop judging my work from back then, because I've got 20 more years of experience now. I could go back in and do a better job. But then I had to think about it and realize that it is what it is because that's the way it was supposed to be. And it's now, even with whatever flaws I might see in it, people accept it as it is, and they love it for what it is. And it's part of my autobiography at this point. So going back in and redoing something just because I'm better at it now, I don't think would necessarily serve it in any way, except for me. That would be my own ego stroke. So yeah, so I have to kind of just accept that it is the way it is because it was supposed to be that. You know, and if I get the chance to go back and do more, yes, I would love to do that. For a lot of the old shows, you know, that would be awesome to be able to pick up the mantle again and still do it, especially the ones I can still do the voices for. And something like Bebop, I can still do Spike's voice. So I would love to get another crack at that if it went into some other incarnation that was supported by Watanabe-san and the original creators of the show. I wouldn't want something that would go against their wishes. So it's most important to me to be a good storyteller. It's much more important. That's much more important to me than the fame or serving my ego by thinking that I can, you know, polish it up a little bit. Sometimes it's better raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is my new time
Okay.
I don't know if that means time, but I like it.
Oh.
We are time
All
thing.
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We do have one more. I do allow to take photos if you're okay with photos in front of this backdrop.
Sure.
Masks are fine.
Yeah.
So if you guys want a photo, give me your camera and I will take it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for streaming, too.
Oh, no doubt.
Thank you for being part of MomoCon Winterfest.
You're gonna play that on the outro of the entirety today. I don't know how
Available
it
for
is.
limited time only.
Yeah.